Hi, I'm Simon Roderick from Fram Professionals. I'm delighted to be joined today by Stephen Wasserman from the National Housing Group. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Simon?
So, despite all of the chaos that's kind of going on in the world and what you see in the newspapers, we are surprisingly busy. So it's all very good, which I hope is your experience too.
Yeah, I mean we're busy as well. Hopefully in the right way. I believe we are. And yeah, look, it's good to be positive, keep working hard, and keep cracking on really.
Absolutely. Stephen, I've got lots of questions that I want to ask you today, but I think before I do, it's probably very good for people to know your background and about your experiences before you set up the National Housing Group. So I wonder if you'd mind telling us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So my background historically has been in mortgage lending. So I founded a company back in 2007 with someone called Duncan Krieger, who I believe you recently interviewed. And that firm was called West One Loans. We we grew that business very successfully in the short-term mortgage market. We sold the business in 2014. Our loan book was north of £100 million at the time. And again, it went very well post initial sale. Sold the business again to private equity in 2017. This time part of a much bigger group and a bigger board. And I stayed on until late 2019, where I left the business after being there obviously for a very long time, being managing director of West One, sitting on the board, institutional shareholders. At the time, we were one of the biggest non-bank lenders in the UK. Had north of or circa £1 billion balance sheet, 350 plus staff, and a very successful lender in the specialist lending market. And since I've left, it's also gone from strength to strength, and it's a fantastic business, and I've remained close with the business moving forward. So yeah, it was a very good journey for me. But when I was there, we lent on some social housing stock, and although we lent to very good developers, and it's nothing negative around the individuals who we worked with and the professionals that I worked with in that business, but I would often look at the types of properties that people were living in and had the feeling that it could be done better. And had the feeling that the quality of the property, there should be no distinction between how people live in the private market to how people live in the social market. And did a bit of reading around it, and there's a model, housing first model, which is basically centered around the quality of one's home is a big determinant of their overall outcome and success in life. And if you've got a comfortable, safe place to live, it is the kind of foundations for growth in other areas. So what I wanted to do was give as good quality product, work in the social housing sector in as much as work on the property side, hopefully do it better, and give things that maybe other people weren't giving. So we had our eco initiative, which we do, and things like the internet and other bits and pieces that we wanted to introduce to social housing that I'm sure is there for some. But we thought that it was important to do it ourselves. So fast forwarding to where I am today, excuse that my phone keeps going off for some reason. It's on
Good that
silent.
you're busy.
Yeah. So where we are today is that we've housed north of 150 people. It's still early days for us. We've got our green initiative that we push quite hard. I can go into it in a bit more detail later. I'm not sure the line of questioning, but I'm sure we can discuss it. But I've been focused on the property side. So I've been working with registered providers, local authorities, housing associations, where I tried to figure out what's needed in what place, and develop it just as I would do if it was a private property.
So much to pick up there, Stephen. I mean, first and foremost, what a fantastic story about your first business. I think a lot of people would have lots of questions about your entrepreneurial nature there. And I talk to lots of founders as well. And, it's lovely for them to see their business continue to go from strength to strength after they've left, because in many ways it's their baby and they want to see it. They want to see it do well. But very interesting as well to hear about your identification of a need for better quality social housing, and talking there about the impact that good quality housing can have on people's overall life chances. And in many ways, it sounds like National Housing Group is a fusion of your kind of commercial experience, but also as well trying to understand the kind of social impact and doing some good as well in the community through business, which is what I think we're all trying to aspire to in 2022. So if you wouldn't mind just telling me about National Housing Group and its focus in terms of the developments that you do and the business model that you have.
Yeah, I mean, as you touch on, we're a for-profit business. I'm commercially minded. I want to make money. I'm not here to just look at altruistic angles. And I saw an opportunity where hopefully we can do both, and we are doing both, which is where we can identify properties just as you would do in the private market that are good value, that are commercially viable. And you can develop those properties, but we work off the local authority housing allowance rate. That rate's typically 30% lower than what the mainstream market is, which is how the LHA rate is calculated, which is 30%, the bottom 30%. And in order for me to kind of bridge that commercial gap around how can I make it work when I'm receiving less rent than what I could do in the private market, is I've been partnering with good covenants, really, good charities, good housing associations, good local authorities. And they've been letting those properties off me from anything from 12 months to 30 years on the longest term. And I'm able to recover some of the lost revenue by increased equity value from that asset being attached to a strong covenant, and also the ESG angle, doing the right thing, makes it institutionally more attractive as well. So where I might lose something on one hand with short-term rent, which is what I am doing, I could get more, I'm making up for it in equity value.
It's a win-win, isn't it? It's a win-win for everyone. And I know that sustainability is very important to your business. I mean, you talk about ESG. I'd love you to kind of tell me a little bit more about how you bring an ESG angle to projects.
Yeah, I mean, ESG is a buzzword that I hear a lot. I mean, I didn't really kind of fully understand ESG. I'm not quite sure I do now even. I think it just means, being environmentally, socially focused in what you do and trying to do the right thing. And how I focus on ESG, or how I look at ESG within NHG, is what makes sense for people who are living in the properties. And for example, when I look at Farringdon Lodge that we did, which is 25 units, which is a scheme that we partnered with Social Interest Group, Penrose, one of their organisations there. And what I wanted to do and what we wanted to do there is we put solar panels on the roof, we had an inverter and batteries, and we put all of that goes into one radiator in each unit, and cooking facilities. So whatever happens, people can cook and they can be warm in the winter. I don't look at carbon footprint and those sorts of things. I don't fully understand it, if I'm going to be completely honest, in regards to the impact it has on normal people's lives, albeit it's obviously very important, and for the environment and for the future and for our children, for our children's children. But in terms of the here and now, for people to live in properties and be able to afford it, especially with rising energy costs, for me, what made sense is try to make the buildings as efficient as possible. So we look at things like EPCs, how much is it going to cost for someone to live in the property? What can we do to make it easier for people to afford energy bills? What happens if people can't afford the energy bills? And it's that sort of thing in terms of what I focus on within the business.
I think talking to a lot of people, I mean, obviously, we talk in our financial services business to a lot of institutions. And I think the more that I hear about ESG, a lot of it actually is about doing the right thing. And it's about taking that long-term approach. And as you say, trying to understand the real impact of what you're doing on normal people and society in general. Obviously, NHG is a new business, and you're an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur at that. What are the advantages and disadvantages of starting a new business and having that blank sheet of paper?
Being creative, I enjoy. I mean, I like simple things as well. So I like simple businesses. I don't like things when they get overly complex and overly complicated with too many moving parts. I like that I've got no external shareholders. Not that the external shareholders I've previously worked in haven't been fantastic, because they were. But it's quite nice just having that freedom and flexibility to make your own decisions and follow your own instinct. I can act quickly. I can do things quickly. I can change my business model quickly if need be. If market factors, become less attractive or more attractive in certain elements of the market, I can pursue those avenues should I want to. And I think also having a very hungry, motivated team. I've got a great team here. Everyone believes in what we're doing. When things are a new business, you feel a sense of kind of ownership and pride in terms of what you're doing. And it's quite nice to go back to those feelings as it was kind of back in 2007, 2008, when my previous business was, getting going. So yeah.
I think this agility side is really important, isn't it? Being able to pivot quickly to make decisions. But I also feel as well that, when you are a major shareholder or 100% owner of a business, it's very much your name above the door, so to speak, and therefore you feel this huge commitment to doing the right thing for clients and delivering, which is hard to perhaps describe sometimes to people who aren't entrepreneurs, who don't own their own business. But talking about, come back to your business, it's obviously there's a lot of moving parts, and it's probably, I guess, very complex projects and everything else. How do you bring projects together when you've got multiple stakeholders? You've got the covenant holders, you've got the development side, you've obviously got your own commercial aims as well. How do you balance all of that, and what advice would you give to people about managing multiple stakeholders?
I try not to overcomplicate things, although, as you're saying it, there are lots of moving parts, from obviously institutional debt to, individual projects, to complexity around projects, things going wrong, staffing, everything else that goes with running a business. And it is complicated, but I try not to overcomplicate any individual decision, and just look at things on face value and try to make reasonable, rational decisions. I also very much try not to kid myself. So, not to sell myself, which can very easily be done when you're doing, big commercial projects, property developments. You're working off, GDVs, gross development values. You believe that you can achieve X, Y, and Z, and it's very easy to look at it through an optimistic lens.
Have you learned that, or have you learned that, or was it always instinctive?
I think it's instinctive. Maybe I'm just not a bit of a negative person sometimes. So, I have that more naturally. But it's something that I do consciously think about as well, in terms of when I'm looking at things, to err on the side of caution, maybe. I am positive in regards to, I follow my own conviction. I believe in myself. I believe that it can be a fantastic business. It will be a fantastic business, and very much believe in what I'm doing, and that I will get to the success in which I'm striving for. But in order to get there, you sometimes need to be prudent as well, and not convince yourself that things are as they're not. And also look at things cautiously. You can be brave and bold and still be cautious at the same time.
I don't need to know the exact, if you have them, I don't need to know the exact metrics, but do you manage through a process of metrics, or again, there's a lot of, your management style kind of gut feeling?
It's both. So I would say it's probably more metrics. So when I'm buying something, I run things through a formula in regards to yield expectation, exit price, value after works, making sure that the numbers work. Obviously, looking at debt costs, looking at running costs of the business. It's predominantly through a metric of spreadsheets and numbers to make sure a project is profitable, and it can make things quite simple too, because it's binary. Is it going to work if I can do that? I know what rent I can get, so I work off the LHA rate. So my income is set on an ongoing basis. Exit price changes depending on market factors, but I also know that I can hold. So as a backstop, I look at hold cost, hold position, and then I can look at upside and downside as well, depending on if the market moves in my favor, if it doesn't move in my favor. So that's all numbers, but also I work on gut feel around what I think is going to be a good project or bad project. Or sometimes, you turn down something and you think it could have been a good project. It probably is a good project, but just my gut feel tells me no.
Very interesting to see how you manage that kind of blend between risk and how to grow the business as well, which is really fascinating. You mentioned earlier about market factors.
Yeah.
We've probably had a pretty crazy 6 weeks in the UK in terms of, well, probably the last 2 or 3 months we've had 3 prime ministers. We've had a Liz Truss budget. We've now got a Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak budget. How do you see the economy, particularly in regards to the property field, which you know so well?
Yeah. I don't think the property market is going to drop significantly. People will fight tooth and nail to maximize value out of what is most people's biggest asset, which they own. I am, I'm aware that there are challenging market factors ahead, obviously, in the property market, and I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I believe it will come off. I don't think you'll see 30% drop that I've heard some people say. I think it will be, it will be less than 10. But who knows? We're likely, interest rates are going up. It's pretty universally believed that that's going to happen. And then we're probably going to go into a recession as a result of that, in all likelihood, or, almost definitely, in my opinion. And then in order to get out of the recession, interest rates will go down again. Yeah. And we'll probably recover and hopefully have a period of prosperity and a better outlook. I don't think it's going to be as doom and gloom and as horrific as what some people believe, albeit with energy prices, with what's going on in the world, in Russia, Ukraine. It's hard to predict. Nobody knows what the future holds, but I think it will be okay.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if we had sort of persistently high interest rates for a long time for the reasons that you just mentioned. They certainly, from everything I'm reading, will go higher, but I'd be surprised if they stayed at that level for a significant period of time, which is very interesting. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. It's been really good to talk to you today. Obviously, if people want to get in contact with you and follow up everything, they can then obviously contact you at NHG or contact me. But wish you all the best with your continued build out of the business.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for the interview, Simon.
Thanks.
Thank you. All the best. Take care.